You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. This is Man Coverage with Knoxville Nate and James Bonneville. We are coming to you live on January 19th, 2025. We got one more game to go. It seems like we've been in these playoffs for a long time, but now it's go time. James, how you doing, buddy?
Oh man. Well, first of all, it's cold as all hell here. Yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow to get here. Man, it is. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? It's crazy.
Yeah, we're ready here, bud. It's snowing here as well. The good news is they're playing indoors, so they don't have to worry about that shit down there. And it's go time no matter what. And this is going to be, pretty good game. I'm interested to see how these two teams show up. And, we got defense versus defense and a, high-flying Buckeyes offense and a Notre Dame offense that's been getting it done as of late. And today we're going to bring in two former Ohio State quarterbacks to help us kind of break this game down. And we're going to drop them in right now. Before we do that, I just want to give thanks to our network, National Streaming Sports, and also throw out there, if you are going to the game and you need tickets, please go to SeatGeek.com, enter in promo code NSS, get $20 off. I don't know how much $20 is going to help you on this $2,000 ticket, but that's what we got for you. So get up there, go to SeatGeek.com. And get your tickets now for Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Speaking of Ohio State, we got a couple of former Buckeyes on the line right now. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
We're great. Ready to go.
All right. We got
Steve. I can't speak for Steve.
How you been, Steve-O? Coming fresh off the state championship. You got to tell us, man, how was that run for Bishop Watterson?
Pretty special, man. To go 16-0 in anything is pretty impressive, and to do it with my brother and his son and my son together, that's one for the books. It was well written, and the good news is we got to try to do it again, right? And we'll see how that works out. But I know, Greg, I think you were up there calling games.
I was sitting there. I got to watch.
It's an unbelievable place, and it was a lot of fun stuff.
Well, I mean, hell, your guys' defense gave up what, 6.5 a year, a game on the year. I mean, that's just insane.
Listen, if you really want to dig into it, it was better than that because on special teams we gave up, I think, more points than our defense. Right? I mean, we had a couple block punts, safety. So if you actually really dig into the details, our defense and what my brother and Coach Kennedy did was elite. It's for the record books. Like, it was unbelievable. They only gave up 111 points the whole year. So pretty special.
That's pretty crazy. Well, congrats to Bishop Watterson and also my best friend, Chris O'Meara. Shout out to him watching the show today. He's down in Atlanta about to get lit, walk in the stadium tomorrow. His son plays for Olentangy Liberty, who also won a state championship in Ohio. And, had a great season. And I watched both the games and I'm proud of you guys and pretty happy. Ohio, if people don't know, Ohio high school football is where it's at. I live in Tennessee now, and it's gotten better down here, but nothing close to what they got up there in the Ohio State area. The high school football up there is top notch, and bunch of really good games leading up to the state championship, and then a couple of doozies in the final. But we're going to break down the national championship today, boys. And obviously, this 2024 season, I've been pretty happy with it. I know some of the fans, I say in quotation mark, or the fanatics as they are, the dumbasses who never played college football and never coached it, know nothing about it, wanted to fire our coach a couple of weeks ago. And I haven't heard a whole lot from those folks the last couple of weeks, but I just want to get you guys both feelings on this. Greg, I want to go to you first and just, what did you think about this season as a whole? And the road that took the Buckeyes to get here, I guess. What do you think about this season in 2024 and the job that Coach Day and his staff have done, getting them to this point?
Yeah, and first of all, I was going to chime in. Congrats, Steve, on the championship with Watterson. I got to see the last 2 games in the booth, and I love watching championship teams, and I could tell that was a championship team, and they met their match in the final, but they found a way to win late, and that had to be very special for you guys. So for you guys as a family and as a team. So congrats on that. But to answer your question, it's been an interesting year, and I think this era, now that you get the playoff year where you got to win more than 2 games, is different. That's one thing we're learning this year is, yes, we lost to that team up north, but you're seeing a team that has had a ton of potential, but really hasn't met their potential until December, January. And that's what I kept telling people I said this back in October, it's all about the team that's playing best in January. It's not about the team that's playing best in September and October, which was Oregon. And
yes,
you got to give them all credit. But poor Oregon had to play Ohio State at the wrong time. But that's the way this thing is made up now. So, and also I'd say, I'll just go right there because I've got friends that are Michigan fans, and I don't mind saying the word Michigan, by the way. I don't care. I have respect, but they were a good football team at the end, and they proved it by beating Alabama. And I think sometimes people forget that. They get too lost in we have to beat them, whatever. Yeah, we want to beat them. But they practice too, by the way. They're well coached too. Could we play better? Yeah, but that's water on the bridge. Look at where we're at now. And, this team has gone through the gauntlet, literally, when you look at who they've beaten the last 3 games. And they got to do one more. So it's been a very interesting year. Obviously, expectations were high. But as I look at this team, I'll just say that, I see a team that has really grown and matured. And there's a tremendous team chemistry that is really, I won't say it's unparalleled because Notre Dame has it too. But I see a team that's really come together. And the reality is the loss to Michigan is what really galvanized this team. I mean, I think if you look back, it kind of took that for them to regroup and say, hey, guys, look, we can't go there again. We got to go to where we're capable of going. And so far, they're 3 out of 3 for doing that, and they got one more tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, well said, Greg. And, that's what it's about, man. I mean, at this point, you don't have to go undefeated. And, as Dabo, I don't like to quote Dabo Sweeney, but as he said, the appreciation has, is not equal to the expectations anymore. And people, they don't appreciate what you do. They just expect you to win every game, every year. And that's just not possible. You're not in this era. You're not going to win every game, every year. And, Steve, I think back to, all the times that Ohio State has, lost 1 game or maybe lost 2 games and been left out of this playoff. I think this 12-team playoff is a good thing, for the Buckeyes this year and for the Buckeyes moving forward. There's been lots of times we've been able to compete and been close to the top 4 or maybe should have been in the top 4, but just weren't because we lost the last game of the season. What do you think about, the 12-team format moving forward? And what do you think about, looking back on it? I mean, do you think there was a couple of times that maybe, we could have, won a couple of titles had we not gotten outcasted because of losing, 1 game?
At first with the 12 team, I was kind of against it. Didn't think it was going to be great. And now watching it play out, I don't think you can find it any better, to be honest. I mean, yeah, you could tweak it here and there, but the reality is you got the best teams in it right now. To Greg's point, you're not going to go undefeated. You got to be playing hot in January, and the right teams are, right? And so if you look at the playoffs right now, the 2 teams that are in it deserve it. They belong there. And, looking at years past, do I think we could have, had a fighter shot at it? Yeah, for sure. But it's hard to tell, right? You go back and rewind these things, and they'd all play out pretty differently. But for the most part, I mean, to Greg's point, I want to chime in on I had a good friend ask me the other day, would you have rather beat Michigan or win the national championship? And the answer is win the national championship.
Yeah.
We play
Yeah.
Michigan every year.
Yeah.
And I know fans aren't going to like that. I really don't give a shit, to be honest.
I don't
The
either.
reality is the football world that we grew up with is no longer the same football world that we live in today. And so if you think of the NFL, right, how many teams have gotten undefeated in the NFL? One.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, right? And so now as college football has become more professionalized, going undefeated isn't the goal anymore. It's just not. It's getting into the 12-team playoff and winning a national championship. And that's exactly what our coaching staff and our players have done. And as a fan base, we should be pretty proud of that. So that's my 2 cents.
Agreed.
It's funny, Steve. As soon as you said that, that literally was going to be my question for you, because my whole thing is, unless they start hanging up banners on beating Michigan inside the stadium, you're going to want the natty, because that's what everybody's going to remember day after day. The question I got for you, Steve, is I look back at the end of the Michigan game, and when Michigan planted the flag, you saw certain players take offense to it, and their games have stepped up. And I mean Jack Sawyer. Like, it looks like this team, prior to any other team, like, they're just angry, like really freaking angry. And Sawyer's game has gone to a level that, he's playing better now than I think he has over the last 4 years. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that came into play where it was just like, we're not going to take this shit anymore, especially from the fan base? When people start talking about Ryan Day getting fired, who's going to drop $38 million to get him to fire a coach who's lost what, Nate, 10 games?
10 games. 69 and 10 right now.
What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I think necessity is an unbelievable motivator, right? If you look at the guys that came back, they came back for a reason. And losing that Michigan game made the finality of their college careers reality, right? It hit them in the face. And Nate, you said it earlier, that was a great opportunity for them to learn something, right? It's unfortunate that we had to lose to Michigan to realize that. But, the Jack Sawyers, these guys realize this is their last, every time they stepped on the field for the last 3 games, right? That was the last 60 minutes of football they're going to have, potentially, right? They got to go out and do their job. So they're playing with their hair on fire. So that's what you're seeing. That Michigan game was unfortunately a slap in the face, a wake-up call, whatever you want to call it. But now going into the playoffs, they realize every game from here on out, it's win or go home, right? And especially for the seniors that came back. So that's what we're seeing. They are playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think they do have something to prove. And it's been evident by what they're putting on the field.
Yeah. And well, we got while we've got 2 quarterbacks here, I'm going to dig into these quarterbacks a little bit. And first off, before we get to the 2 guys that are actually playing this game, I want to talk a little bit about, how they got here. And what I mean is both of these guys are, let's just say it, they're free agent veterans. That's what these guys are. And that's what Ohio State did. They went out and got a guy that played a lot of games at Kansas State. Notre Dame went and got a guy who played a lot of games at Duke and brought them in. And Greg, I want to go to you first. Is that, what is the formula, I guess, going forward after, everybody else, it's a copycat league. It's a copycat college football. They see something, everybody else wants to do it. How do you balance now, I guess, going forward, bringing in a Grizzly veteran, these guys playing 3 or 4 years, or developing your own, young freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and how do you decide, I guess, who to throw out there and when, based on, what we're seeing here?
Well, I think most coaches would rather have a guy with a couple years experience within their program, but certainly this is a testament that you can bring a guy in for 1 year and get it done. But Michigan last year had J.J. McCarthy, who was the guy that had been there multiple years. So there's multiple ways to do it, but if it depends on your quarterback room, really. I think that's every year's free agency now. So if your quarterback room is light, you don't have the guy you want, and those guys know. Steve knows this. The guys know in the room. The guys know in the room right now who's going to play next year at Ohio State. Guarantee you. I think I do too, by the way. So it's a year.
Tell us.
Look, I love these. We won't. We're not answering that one yet. I love these 2 quarterbacks. I really like Riley Leonard. I have a lot of respect for him. I love his feet. he gets knocked for not being able to, being that great of a thrower. He's very capable of making throws. He made some great throws last week, but his feet, he doesn't look as fast as he is. He is lightning quick, probably like a Steve Bellisari, maybe a little quicker. He can move. He's great in the pocket. He's great when plays break down. So really like him, and certainly Will Howard. I mean, he continues to get dogged. I don't know why. If you look at his statistics throughout the playoff, I think he's completing 75% of his passes. I mean, he is on fire and he's accurate. So I'm really happy for him. I was able to meet him earlier this year. My son and I met him back in the spring. And from the get-go, people were asking me, and here's what he said to me that stood out, which was he didn't feel he really got coached very much at Kansas State, which blew me away. And he was hungry for the coaching. He asked them to coach him hard. I'm like, well, you're at the right place. You got two guys. They're gonna coach him hard, but you can't get coached by two better guys offensively than what he's getting here. And certainly we are seeing the fruit of that. So I'm a fan of both these guys. I think they've kind of risen through the ranks, and now is their opportunity to shine. They weren't big 5-star guys coming in, so and the fact that they know each other is pretty cool. So, I'm excited. I'm rooting for both of them. Obviously, I know which one I want to win, but I am a fan of Riley Leonard as well.
Hey, Greg, I got a question for you. I kind of flipping the script and talking about Notre Dame this week. I want to get your thoughts on Marcus Freeman and the coaching job he's done this year. I mean, everybody keeps talking about the Northern Illinois game, which you could have lost your locker room at that point. I mean, he's had some rough losses throughout his time period there. But what amazes me from watching him and the stability of that program is all the injuries they've had to really key guys. I mean, especially in the offensive line, losing Morrison, now Kaiser. Their defensive line is small, yet he's finding ways to win. I mean, what are your thoughts on Marcus Freeman? I mean, he's also an Ohio State guy too as well. And I mean, you look at what he's done coaching-wise, it's quite frankly amazing. Right.
Well, I'll disagree that everybody's talking about Northern Illinois. But yeah, that's the similarity is their team. They had their loss too, right? That defined their season, right? Who would have thought they could lose to Northern Illinois? But boy, they turned it around since then. Look, and Marcus is a tremendous coach. He's a young guy. He's a high energy guy, and he's a great motivator. And there are coaches that teams will follow because they just ooze leadership coming out of them, and you can see that with that team. Despite all their adversities, he's got this vision that they're all bought in, and it's impressive because I've been around programs where coaches lose teams, and obviously these two coaches are nowhere near that. But when you have adversity set in, there's a risk of that where you can lose a team. You can lose certain parts of the team. You can lose your coaches. So the fact that he's held that together is really, really impressive. I think he's going to be a great coach for a long time there. I'm not surprised at all by what he's doing. And, look, to win a championship, you got to navigate a lot of stuff. It's not going to be a smooth ride. It never is. And to get to this gauntlet, just to get to the championship game is an amazing, amazing thing. So regardless of whether Notre Dame loses or not, he's had a tremendous year, and they're just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, and obviously this whole season. Go ahead.
Real quick, I mean, go back to the way Marcus played his career at Ohio State.
Yeah,
it's exactly how he's coaching.
Yeah,
right. No one should be surprised. Like Marcus was tremendous as a player, as a teammate, and he's continuing exactly what he did at Ohio State at Notre Dame. So, I mean, hats off to him. I think he's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, I hope Brian Kelly's watching.
It always amazes me watching him. Like when something bad happens, he's got the ultimate poker face. Like, he's just like, all right, next play. Like, I've never seen a coach where the highs are never too high, the lows are never too low. It's just steady. And you look at his halftime interviews or whenever they bring him over, it's kind of like this, all right, let's go. Like, he's almost like flatlining watching the game in many ways, which, let's be honest, the players feed off the coach.
Yeah, they do.
If you're going to be a great coach, you got to be able to do that. That's without a doubt. All the great coaches can handle that. That you can't get stuck on your emotions too long. And he excels at that. And he's also put together a great coaching staff, by the way. I mean, let's give him some
Yeah.
credit for his two coordinators. He's got two of the best coordinators in the nation. And Al Golden and Mike Denbrock are doing a fabulous job. So he's got a foundation there where he can do the head coaching duties and do them well, and then interject where he needs to. So he's got it going on there with players and coaches.
No doubt. And, now it comes down to this, and there's one last game. And, Steve, I'll ask you first, what do you think is going to be the difference, I guess, in this one? I look at, Will Howard is obviously going to be a factor. His decision-making is kind of what makes this offense go when he's, getting people open and picking the right reads. But, you guys know more than me what's going to make this work. What do you think is the key, to the offense, flowing like it did, especially in the first two games? And, what do you think on the other side is the key for the Irish?
I've said this all year. If you're going to win the championship, I don't care what level of football you're at, NFL, college, you got to be able to run the ball well. You got to be able to convert on third down and play really clean defense, right? Win the turnover battle. And if you just look at what we've done in the playoffs, right? We've been super efficient on offense. We've converted the majority of our third downs. We've run the ball really well, and we haven't turned it over, right? And so if you go look at paper, Notre Dame's they're built to beat Ohio State, to be honest, right? The games that we lost, right? We didn't win on third down. We didn't run the ball well, right? And we didn't do that against Oregon. We didn't do well on third down, and we didn't run the ball against Michigan. And they played a too high shell on us because they had those two D tackles that they won up front. So if Michigan back end, Notre Dame can play good in the back end, which they will, right? They're good at that and stop the run. We're going to be challenged. I don't see that happening, right? I mean, so the key to our game is being efficient on third down and run the ball, and I think we'll be fine doing that.
What are your thoughts, Greg, on that too, as well? Or you're pretty much in agreement with Steve on that answer too?
For the most part, yeah. I think to win a national championship, you got to be solid in all phases. Both teams are really sound in special teams, so to me, that's kind of a wash. When you look at the coordinators for both teams, they're all great. To me, that's kind of a wash. So to me, it comes down to everything Steve said, but it's which playmakers are going to step up. And I also say, if you look at the coordinators, the guy that's got the toughest job is Al Golden. To me, the way Notre Dame's defense responds to Ohio State's offense is going to be what I'm going to be watching, because he's got it to his head of, okay, I got to stop the run. Good luck, right? And then I got to pressure the quarterback and try to play a lot of man behind it. Like, those don't all add up. No. So what I see is if you're gonna play man free and Travion Henderson creases through and gets past that front seven, he's got a problem.
Yeah,
because he's got corners playing man. And a free safety who's really good, by the way, who comes up and makes a lot of those plays. But if he misses, which happened in South Bend last year, and Travion took it to the house, you got a problem. If you have one little breakdown in man coverage and some number 4 gets loose or 2 gets loose, then you got a big play happening really, really quick. But again, so he's got to find a way to do both. And it's really hard to do both. I don't care how good you are. And their defense is really good, but that's a problem. And also, I look at it like this, that Ohio State's got the 5th gear. And if we can get to that 5th gear, I don't care who we're playing. We've proven that in the playoff 2 out of 3 times. If we get to that 5th gear and pop off 2 or 3 in a row, Notre Dame can't play that game. They can't get down 3 scores and press on the gas. That's not how they operate. They can be down like 10 points like last week and come back. But they got to keep it close. They got to get turnovers. They got to win the special teams. They got to play a slugfest and keep us out of big plays, which again is they got a gun to their head from the get-go. The second that game starts, they can't blink. And that's a problem. So, statistically, probability-wise, Ohio State's a better team. I mean, I don't think we can just say that. The only guy that's going to disagree with me is Lou Holtz, and he's he's more on the roll in my book. So yeah, you got the best players are going to win this game, and I believe Ohio State has them. But there's no guarantee. We know that, but I'm excited to see what's going to happen tomorrow night.
Yeah, we don't care what Daffy Duck says on this show, so that's neither here nor there. But we were talking about Al Golden, what he's going to do. Talk to me about the offensive coordinator, Steve, for Notre Dame. If you were him, let's say they hired you to call this game, how would you attack this Buckeye defense. I mean, obviously that front four is elite. You know, I think Cody Simon has been the MVP of the team. I mean, Jack Sawyer got a case for that, but Cody Simon's been absolutely amazing this entire season, especially the last 6 or 7 weeks. But let's say you had to be the guy with the card in your hands. You know, what would you do to try and attack this defense that Ohio State's got?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's hard, right? But I do think having a dual threat quarterback is what challenges this defense, right?
Yeah.
And he's done a great job all year at Notre Dame, reading his keys, reading it the right way. So you got to make them pick, right? Who are they going to stop? They're going to stop the running game, or they're going to stop the quarterback, right? And you've seen Notre Dame historically in this playoff do really well of using their quarterback in key situations because the other teams were keying on the running backs. So I think, you got to give him some quick completions, get him comfortable. We do play some man in the back end, but we also will mix in a lot of drop zones. So just take what they give you and make him effective running the ball. I think that's going to be their key on offense to attack our defense. Our defense has to pick who they want to stop. It's going to be one or the other. And I would challenge that quarterback to be this, right? Especially with the talent we have in the back end. So it's a tough job, but they definitely have a kid that I think can cause some problems for us because of his ability to run and throw. So,
yeah, Greg. Before we get into your question, I'm a Minnesota fan. I went to the U, and I was at the '89 game, and I still have nightmares. Like I had to rewatch the second half of last year's game or the '89 game. So, my guess is you scored another touchdown since then, since you dropped 41 in the second half against us. So, just know that there is some PTSD sitting there for me. I look at Notre Dame's got to win first down in many ways. They got to get in third and short to allow that to happen. How would you handle that? Would you do more like RPOs and have Riley Leonard running up the middle? Because, I mean, especially their right tackle, are they sitting on a fourth stringer right now? I mean, how would you handle that so you don't get stuck in those type of situations if it were you?
Well, first of all, I'd sneak an extra guy in the field. I'd play 12.
It might help.
Yeah. Well, the point I was going to make real quick, and then I'll answer your question, is Mike Denbrock, right? Mike Denbrock and I spent a season together with me as a player and him as the O-line coach, if you guys can believe this.
Wow.
1993 Cleveland Thunderbolts in the Arena Football League. Mike Denbrock was the offensive line coach. He was at Grand Valley State.
I did not know that either.
I've been telling people all week, and they're like, what? Yeah. There could be a Netflix series about that season, by the way. Like, outside of our locker room, nobody cared about the results of that football team. Trust me. But that's a whole segue. But back to your point, that puts, I like what Steve said. I mean, if I'm Mike Denbrock, I got a Jeremiah Love who's a little bit banged up, from what I can tell, who's really good. But Ohio State's play, they're ready for him, I think. And they're going to know what they're going to get there. But it's about using the legs of your quarterback because he's got, not only is he quick, he's tough. I mean, he is not afraid to run over somebody. He's an extra running back. So I'd run him more flat runs. You go back to the 2002 national championship, what Jim Tressel did with Craig Krenzel. They just ran power with the quarterback. It wasn't even flashy, but I don't believe they showed that all season long. You correct me on that, Steve, but I'd flat out run your quarterback because that's how you pick up the extra guy. So I wasn't kidding about picking that extra guy. You got a wing in there. You can lead with the wing. You can go, 4 wide and still lead with a wing, and maybe even lead with the back if you want to go 3 wide and get 2 guys up in the hole and literally go right at Ohio State. That's what I would do because there's no tomorrow, right? Like, so what about saving your quarterback? I mean, they actually got a decent backup in Angeli who can throw the ball. So to me, Riley Leonard would rush for 100 yards because he'd rush for about 20 times by design, let alone on pass plays they're going to break down. And I'd throw more RPOs. I would try to stress our defense with the RPOs because you're pulling guys up and throwing over their heads, which he has proven he can throw that. Will it work? I don't know, but I think he's got to throw it at us. I'd flat run him by design, especially on first downs. And even on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6,
Yeah.
I put him in an RPO situation with a lead blocker to let him use his feet. If he wants to throw it, fine. If not, go run and go get it.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out. And, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, going into this game. We're about to get out of here. But before I let you guys leave, I want you both to kind of give us, back when you played, obviously there was pressure then. There's pressure now. How did you deal with the pressure and cope with it, to get going? And, what, I guess, is your, favorite memory from when you played, and what sticks out and can you just, never forget from when you were there? Steve, you go first, and then Greg, follow him up and give us both what you got.
Yeah, well, the first part of your question, what the kids deal with today is something we never had to with social media. And I'd pick up the lantern and read it. Okay, it didn't really hurt my feelings too much. It wasn't that big of a deal. But, you pick up your phone now and you could have a million people with their whatever opinion they want to have about it. And, I think I go back to it. It was really the team, right? No matter what pressure or whatever we were dealing with, it was the guys in the locker room that made all the difference, right? And so I've been asked that question, like, what's your favorite memory? And it's hard because there's days where it was a summer workout, getting up at 6 a.m. and the guys in the locker room and we're all cutting up, having fun. Those memories are hard to replace. But as far as a game or anything like that, really my freshman year, we played on the road at night at West Virginia. And I remember coming off the bus with my CD player. Yeah, back then we didn't have MP3s, right? And it was just a special moment, right? Realizing, my dad had played at Ohio State, my brother played, and here was my first opportunity to go do that. And for me, that was special, right? Walking out, it was a hostile environment. And I had a couple of friends from my high school that were playing for West Virginia at the time. So it just kind of all came together at that moment. But there's a lot of other special memories that go into that, but hard to pin down just one.
Yeah. Greg, what about you?
I think from a preparation standpoint, you learn real quick how to manage your emotions. My first Michigan game, it took me the entire first half to settle down. I was so jacked up. I overthrew, I don't know how many balls in a row, and literally it took me a half. And Steve, you're old. CDs. I was listening to. I was
tape player
because I'm old. My cassette player. I remember being on the bus coming into Ohio Stadium and my first start against Michigan, and my energy was just I couldn't contain it. It was just different. So, but obviously, the more games you start, you get better prepared for that. So I think we look at this team this year. Look, they're going to be ready for this game. The last 4 games they played, significant games that are hyped. So this one it's got a different title to it, right? But I will say this about the last thing about the team is they're focused. They know what their goal has been. They've been very open about that. Clearly know the expectations out there. They'll be ready. But for me, I would say, like Steve, there's not just one. Obviously, the Minnesota game was a big one, right? Because the offense was getting involved. I was the guy that couldn't throw the ball, but I'm the one that had the handcuffs on a first down. When they took handcuffs off, because we had to, because we were down by 31, funny thing happened along the way. We actually threw for 306 in the second half. Just saying. Like Steve, I missed the locker room. I do miss that. But for me, coming off the bench to help Earl Bruce win his last game at Michigan was a huge deal for me. That was a validator for me. Throwing my first winning touchdown pass against LSU and beating the SEC. That was watching those guys cry. That was pretty special. There's a few other ones, but those are a few that really stand out to me. And like Steve, the camaraderie, with the guys is something that you can't replace. And that's something that this team really, really gets. They just want the extra week of practice. They want to play in the national championship. They want the extra week with each other. So that's how galvanized this team is, which I think is going to show up tomorrow night in the way they play for each other.
I agree. Steve, what do you got, man? What's the score? Who's winning?
Actually, I think we win. I think it'll be closer than a lot of people want, but it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 14 points. It's hard to say, right? And Greg mentioned it. We do have that fifth gear. It could be another 28-14 type game, or it could be 42 to 17 really quick. It just depends on that first to second quarter, right? I mean, about the third or fourth drive, right? The first 20 plays on each team, they're going to be scripted. They're going to be their best plays. But about that third or fourth drive, that's when the game settles in, and you'll know really quickly. So, yeah, we'll see. But, I mean, I'm not nervous about this game. I think they are designed to beat us, and they're a hell of a football team. I respect, Marcus obviously a ton. I think if we play our game, we play clean. I don't know how we lose this one.
What do you got, Greg?
It's about the fifth gear to me, and I look at I look at this from the lens of I've been in the broadcast booth for the last 20 some years. I watch a lot of teams go through. Now this is state championships, but I also watch. I really follow teams that win national championships. And Steve talked about the formula, and I've seen that. Ohio State's got the formula in spades, and they do have the fifth gear. And that's something that Watterson showed. I saw Watterson in the state semifinal go down early to a very, very good London team and then absolutely explode. And the game was over. And it was the biggest quarter I've ever seen in all my years of broadcasting. It was, and he knows, he smiled. It was unbelievable. It was like 8 degrees wind chill. I don't know how they did it. But my point is that Ohio State has that. And I look at teams about what they did the last game. Ohio State's offense versus Texas, I'll give them a B. When they got in the red zone, they scored. And obviously we got the late defensive score. It wasn't their best offensive effort. Yeah. They're not going to do that 2 games in a row. They're not. They had 10 penalties, which killed a lot of drives. So I like the fact that offensively, this team has been working on those things for the last week, knowing like, guys, we can't do that again. If they do that again, we're going to be in a close game. And if we're in a close game, that just feeds Notre Dame in the way that they know how to win. So I see that fifth gear kicking in. I don't know when it's going to kick in. I don't think it's going to be right away like we saw in the Rose Bowl. But when it kicks in, and here's my thing. You got to be up by more than 14 points. Yeah. Get up by 3 scores, and then you put the gun to Notre Dame, because then are they going to stick with their offensive plan, or are you going to pull them out of that and make rather than beat you throwing the ball? That's a problem for Notre Dame. It cannot get into that. So I believe that's going to happen at some point. Let's say second, third quarter, and then we hold the tempo of the game, and we're in our comfort zone of being up 3 scores, and our defense can tee off on them. So sorry, Lou Holtz. I disagree. We have a fifth year, and it's going to show up.
Yeah. I don't. You think after being wrong twice, he might shut his mouth, but that's never going to happen. Well, but I agree with you. I think they really need to start fast. That seems to be something that's helped them the last several games in this playoff. Getting started fast and getting going has been good. And then, as you mentioned, I think that was huge. The penalties really wrecked a lot of their drives in that last Texas game. So if they can avoid those, I think they'll be in good shape. But gentlemen, we appreciate you guys so much for coming on today and helping us break this game down and get ready for the championship. You made me feel a little better. I'm still a nervous wreck, but I always am. I mean, when we play Central Michigan, I get nervous just because I care way too much. But we appreciate you guys coming on, and I hope you enjoy the game tomorrow. And I hope both of you come back and see us again real soon. Okay, guys?
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Have a good one.
Good seeing you, Greg.
Go Bucks.
All right. Enjoy the game. Go Bucks. And we'll talk to you again real soon. We'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
All right, fellas. Huge thank you to 2 former Ohio State quarterbacks. A lot to unpack there. James, what did you think about 2 former Buckeye quarterbacks breaking it down? What did you think about our segment there?
Well, first, I'm still in PTSD from Greg Frey's second half against us in '89. So and I forgot to ask him, Glenn Mason was on the sideline for that game too as well, except on the Ohio State side. Yeah. But they both nailed it. I mean, honestly, there's multiple aspects about this that, one, We got to get them in third. Ohio State's got to get Notre Dame in third and long. They do that, you're basically allowing JTT, Caleb Downs, and Jack Sawyer just to tee off and go after them. But honestly, you look at this team, there's just something different about this Ohio State team where, I mean, we keep talking about Ohio State versus the world. I've never seen a team embody Ohio State versus the world like this one. Like there is an edge to these guys like I have never seen before. Like there's an emotional edge where not only do they want to win, they want to make a statement.
Yeah, I agree. And, this offense, I think will be fine. As I mentioned while we were talking to the two former Ohio State quarterbacks, Will Howard's decision-making is going to be important. I don't know if you saw the one play, the zone read where it was Howard and Judkins, and he read the D end, and he misread it. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but he misread it, and he kept the ball. He got hit for like a 1 yard loss or no gain or whatever. But if he had given it to Judkins, he was gone. I mean, I am not just exaggerating. He almost 99% would have scored. And so I think the decision making today is going to be crucial. He doesn't need to throw for 350 yards.
No.
He doesn't need to throw 5 touchdowns. He just needs to take what the defense gives him and and not make mistakes, not turn the ball over, and they'll be fine because, James, what I feel like is we're going to be okay. The Buckeyes, on defense. I think, Cody Simon, Williams obviously is one of the best defensive tackles that has ever played at Ohio State. So I don't worry too much. I just don't think they're going to run for 250 yards on Ohio State. No one has all year long. So if they can hold this run up, I just don't think these guys on the outside can stop Jack Sawyer, JT Talamula. I know JT's got the ankle, but even with that, I don't think they're going to be able to stop these two guys on the edge when they have to obviously pass. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. Especially with that right tackle for Notre Dame, that fourth stringer. There's so many times in the game against Penn State where he was getting his shoulders past his knees and feet, and he was just out of position. And Jack Sawyer does an incredible job of getting good bend, get down and get underneath. I mean, heck, you look at the sack for fumble touchdown at the end of the game. I mean, that was prototypical Jack Sawyer and how his explosion really did that. I look more on the offensive side of the ball. If I'm Notre Dame, I think I'm going to do a lot of what Texas did as far as Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. And I think you're going to see G. Scott and Carnell Tate-Nabuka really carrying a lot of the load passing wise. But I agree with you on Will Howard. Win third down offensively, get in third and manageable situations, move the sticks, and more importantly, win the turnover battle. If they do those two things, Ohio State can't lose. They cannot lose. Yeah.
I mean, if it's 3rd and 7, pick up 5, take what's there, pick up 5. If it's 4th and 2 and you're not on the 5, your own 5, I mean, he's going to go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to see aggression from Ryan Day. I mean, that's what's worked since he's just said, screw it, we're going. And since the start of the first play of that Tennessee game, he has put his foot down on the gas, and it's been a different team. The offense has been different. The defense has been different. Everything's been different.
The Michigan game, I mean, it looked like they were just playing not to lose.
It did.
And doing very conservative 1980s football, and they're running into the heart of Michigan's defense. I mean, there are 4 guys. I mean, Michigan went 7-5 in the year. There are 4 guys in that freaking roster who are going in the first round, 3 of which are on defense, 2 of them are at D tackle. I mean, I don't care who you are. You got 2 first-round D tackles. You're gonna block stuff up the middle.
Yeah, they finished the season 8-5, and they didn't have a quarterback. I mean, that's pretty damn good. They didn't. I mean, think about it. No. They rotated 2 or 3 guys in, but none of those guys really knew what the hell they were doing, and none of those guys are going to be starting for Michigan next year. So they had no quarterback, and they still, won 8 games and beat Ohio State and beat Alabama. So, they're good. I hate them. but they are a good football team, and they had guys, several guys left over from the team that won the national championship last year and went undefeated. So that there's something to be said for that. But I do agree that game changed a lot of the mindset about this Buckeye team. I think not that I thought that they could just, they felt like they could just show up and win every game. I don't feel like they thought that, but I do feel like they thought they could just do whatever they wanted and it might work, and now I feel like they all realize that they've got to collectively, focus and come together. I do want to ask you a question here. Dissecting these two guys, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, they've got some similarities, obviously. Leonard, I think, is a better runner. Howard can get you some yards if you need him to. But, when you look at these two guys, collectively, what stands out to you? And, what do you think we're going to see from each of them, come tomorrow?
Well, honestly, from both sides, I got to respect the leadership side. I mean, in January of, last year at this time, they were just coming into their schools. And I'm impressed how both of them have really created that leadership role and had the players respect them that quick. I mean, sometimes that's hard for a guy to come in because you don't know the locker room dynamics and stuff. And that's a testament to both of these guys because, a little different for Will Howard because, you've got a legacy there of really good quarterbacks from Haskins to Fields to CJ Stroud. Hell, Kyle McCord put up great stats and you're the next guy up and you don't want to be the guy that let things down. And you look at Howard's numbers this year were really, really good. I don't think he gets near the credit for what he really did.
I agree.
He just got to honestly with Howard, play within himself, but don't try to, win the game with your arm. Just move the ball down the field, move the sticks and make the smart pass. I know Jeremiah Smith's probably chomping at the bit. Get me the ball, make the smart pass. Don't turn the ball over. With Riley Leonard, honestly, you got to wrap that guy up. When he's running, he is really dangerous. And he always, after contact, falls and gets another 3-4, falls and gets another 3-4. And it's like death by a million cuts. If you can get him in third and long, that's his problem area. But he has done an incredible job all year of getting in third and manageable.
Yeah, and that certainly is going to be, something to keep our eye on as far as, the decision-making of these two guys. I agree with you. I think both these guys have really had tremendous seasons. Leonard started a little slow. But once he got going and felt comfortable in the offense, I think he's really shown, why they brought him in there. And let's be honest, last year, it wasn't like a total failure, but I felt like Sam Hartman just wasn't really the guy that they thought he was. And I think they hit on this one. And I don't know why it didn't really work with Sam Hartman. It's not like they had a terrible year, but this team this year is way better. And I think a lot of it has to do with the decision-making of Riley Leonard and how they've been able to build the offense around his strengths, if you know what I mean.
You look at this receiving core, it's not like it's fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. There's nobody on Notre Dame's receiving core that scares me. No. Where you look at Sam Hartman, he had those receivers at Wake Forest. Where Riley Leonard, Notre Dame's a running team. Let's be really honest with them. They like to play bully ball. And Riley Leonard really embodies that a lot more. If I was Sam Hartman, honestly, if I was going to leave Wake Forest, I would have probably gone to Texas Tech and played for Joey McGuire because I think that would have been a better fit for him last year. But, I don't know his decision-making process, and it's up to him. But, yeah.
Well, we're going to see a lot of that coming up with guys, transferring all the time. I think it's really important to go somewhere where the offense, fits you, or if you're a defensive player where the defense fits you. You've got to do your homework. You can't just be like, oh, who's offering me the most money? Who has the hottest chicks? I know those are just factors in the decision making process. But really, you got to go find somewhere where you can be successful. And I think that's important for these guys moving forward. And it's just going to keep going and going, where guys are going to be moving around and all that. We've seen it, the last few years. And I enjoyed listening to those guys tell us, what they thought about the new, quarterback position. I mean, obviously, like Greg said, you want to have a guy that's in your program for a couple of years, but that's not, that's just not something that's feasible anymore. You just can't have everybody on your roster sitting and waiting. And so you either have to play them and let them get their lumps, or you got to bring in a guy to replace them. And I want to get your thoughts, because I didn't really hear from you on this. And I want to know what you think is going to happen going forward. I mean, are you going to see, you think we're going to see more of this, where guys are going to play somewhere for a couple of years, prove themselves, and then bounce because other teams are just going to pay hefty sums to get a free agent, veteran guy to come in and guide their team for 1 year, or what? I mean, is this the new thing, or what's up, James?
I think you're going to see it for a time period. I think what you're going to see more, though, is, I mean, there's been a lot of kids out there who, weren't really developed enough, either physically, mentally. Maybe they were at the wrong high school program that didn't showcase their abilities off. A Cam Ward would be a perfect example of that. And now they have gone from being a 0-star to a possible first-round draft pick. I mean, I know we talked about with this Steve before, but with Greg, talking about how much their game developed, not only mentally but physically, over that 4 to 5 years they spent in Columbus. And not only that, when Greg was talking about Howard, when he never got the coaching he was hoping for, the push, the drive, and how he got that from Ohio State. I mean, having that extra emphasis, or really catalyst on the other side, could take that kid who, maybe he was a marginalized player there to become great. I mean, look at a Cam Scadabout. I think he is a perfect example of something like this, where, hell, last year, Dillingham was, in his head, you got to drop 15 pounds. And he was thinking possibly that he could lose them by just doing that, just because he had that mental makeup. Instead of running away from the fire, the kid ran to the fire. And hell, I mean, honestly, looking back on it, when people were making the comment he should have been in New York for the Heisman Trophy finalist, they're right. He should have been.
I agree. And you know what that makes me think about? When he was talking about Will Howard, I was sitting in my head, and I know it's a different sport, but I was thinking Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect is that exact same guy as Will Howard. I mean, they remind me of each other. They're not real loud. They're not real flashy, but they're both really good young men who wanted to be great. And they wanted to go somewhere where they weren't just going to be like given an opportunity and been allowed to. They wanted someone to get on them and make them better. And that's why Will came to Ohio State. That's why Dalton Connect came here to Knoxville to have Rick Barnes get after him, because Rick Barnes does that, man. Rick Barnes shoots it straight. He's won like 9,000 games for a reason. He tells his players, sometimes what they don't want to hear. And some of these coaches today, they don't tell these kids, things that they don't want to hear. They don't, because they're scared. They're going to piss them off, and they're going to leave and never come back. And
there's a lot of coaches out there that the good ones, they're not only building players, they're building men. Because let's be honest, you're going to come up with some kind of, controversy, roadblock, some impetus where it doesn't go your way. And how you respond to that is going to be the ultimate. Do you sit and pout, or do you fight back and keep moving ahead? I mean, that's the one great thing about football, is it provides that all the time. Now, the one thing I will say on the transfer portal is the kids that are 5 stars or high 4 stars, I think they better realize the second they step on campus, what their star was in high school doesn't mean crap anymore. And I think we're seeing that quite a bit with some of these kids transferring, like Malachi Nelson. I mean, he went from USC to Boise State, and now he's at UTEP. He's looking for a starting job. And if I'm an NFL scout, what do you think I'm looking at? Even if he did do great, it's like anytime there's controversy, he ran for the hills. He ran for, making it easy to make sure he got something. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. As I just mentioned, these coaches today have a tough job. I mean,
Yeah,
they really do.
they do.
They've got to go out and recruit. I mean, at a ridiculous clip, because these kids now they get so much attention, and there's everything they do is put on social media. Everything they do is videotaped and uploaded, and every comment they make is dissected and printed and published. And so they have to, have a really strategic plan as to how they go out and recruit. They have to have a strategic plan on how they go out and get guys to add to their team from the portal. You can't just go and grab anybody, because it's not always going to work out. And I've seen it more times than not, where someone goes to a new place and it just doesn't happen. It doesn't work. Yeah. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. But the one is, do they fit your culture? Do they have skill set that fits well with what you're doing schematically on an offensive and defensive perspective? And then you have to retain your players and keep the guys that you've brought in, both through the portal and through recruiting. You got to keep them, and you got to keep them happy. You got to keep them focused on the goal. And that's what, that's what Ryan Day has done a really good job of. And he doesn't get any credit for it. I mean, he's never going to. I understand the job. He understands the job, but that doesn't make it fair. These people are critical of everything this guy does. They make fun of his hair. They make fun of the color of his beard. They make fun of, everything they can and criticize everything under the sun. But let's be honest. I mean, it doesn't lie. Stats don't lie. He's 69-10. And if he wins tomorrow, he'll be 70-10 and have a national championship. That's really, once you win a national championship, nobody can say shit. And that is why I hope he wins tomorrow. Not, for the team. I want these kids to have this for, with them forever. I want them to remember this day and have this national championship for a long time. But more than anything else, I want the Buckeyes to win, because I want Ryan Day to have this national championship. He's been close. They played in the title game in 2020. They've had several teams, that game against Georgia. Let's be honest, if they'd have pulled that out, I really feel like they would have dominated TCU. So he's been very close, but he has not won a title game. Well, he's in it again. He's got the team that he wants, and I feel like this is the best chance he's had since he's been there. Do you agree with that?
Honestly, I go back to the Michigan game. Like I talked about the Jack Sawyers of the world. And you looked at Ryan Day after that game, he just looked like you could just tell he was deep in his head.
He didn't know what to do.
And after that game, there was this screw it mentality. Like literally, it's like, let's go. Like rather than running away from the situation and trying not to lose, just letting it all hang out on the table. And I mean, you look after every game, like he's not thinking until they beat freaking Texas and played for the national championship. All he thought about was like, let's go. Let's go. Next game, let's go. And it's created this edge to him where he's just a fighter. And it's awesome seeing that. Like he's taking nothing for granted anymore. And I got to say, it's got to be infectious in that locker room, because they're playing fast and loose, like unlike any other time. I mean, you think you're getting into the playoff, you're going to be tight. Yeah. And in every single one of those games, they come out like, what do we got to lose? Let's go.
Yeah, and you saw him even after the Texas game, he didn't really look like he was happy. He looked happy, but if you look back and a lot of the other games, when they've won, it's almost like he was relieved that they won some of these games. But when they won the Texas game, he was like, okay, we did what we were supposed to do. And he was already starting to think about the Notre Dame game. He was already starting to plan out what they were doing next. He hasn't looked like, I don't know if you saw, they did the trophy presentation, which I don't understand why they do a trophy presentation after every effing bowl game. It's stupid, but whatever. And they handed him the trophy, and he kind of took it and he lifted it up, and he lifted up in the air, and then he was like standing there, and he went and he sat it back down, and then he just like walked away from it. It was like he didn't care. He wants to win this game, and he wants to win it for this team. He loves these kids. And, I'm not around this team every single day. I don't live in Columbus anymore, so I'm not as close to the program as I used to be. But I still have a lot of, people that I speak to. And he loves these guys. He loves this team. He loves this program. And nobody was more affected than him by that loss. I mean, that really
Yeah.
did. But once again, expecting a team to win every game every year is not realistic. It's
No.
not going to happen. Even Notre Dame. I mean, we've been sitting here talking about all the ways the Buckeyes can win. Well, the Buckeyes can lose too. And would they beat Notre Dame? If they played 10 times, would they probably beat them 7? I think they would. Maybe even 8. But they can still lose on any given night. And that's always a possibility, and that's why they play the game. I mean, if they're so much better, why don't they just hand them the trophy now? Because they're not. This team's good too, and anybody can win any given night. What is your? I guess give us your final thought going into the championship and the last game of the season, James.
I'm going 38-21 still.
All right.
I mean, I look at this team, and I think this is the game where they're going to choke somebody out, literally. Yeah. Like they've had their knee on people's throats. This is personal. Like I've never seen a team come in, except maybe, I go back to Darian Hagan when on those Colorado teams. Like, I hate to quote Blues Brothers, but they're on a mission from God.
Yeah.
This is like really personal to Ohio State to win this game. And quite frankly, if I after watching that trophy presentation, I think nothing would have made Coach Day happier than rather than flying back to Columbus is just jump on a plane and let's go play tomorrow. Let's go to Atlanta and play the game tomorrow. I'm ready to go right now. I don't care. Let's go.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would be all for that, but I think a couple of days rest for JT Talamula's ankle was probably a good thing. But yeah,
absolutely.
I'm with you. And Jack Sawyer, I think he was a little tired after his 90-yard sprint. So maybe that
was the best. Is like the 30-yard line. You could just tell just the way he was running and chugging. He was
going like this, and he kept looking like for somebody to come and grab him, from behind, and nobody was coming, and he was still going. And then he was like looking over the sideline, going like, "Where is everybody?" And they're like, "They're not around you. Keep running." And this is a kid who grew up in Columbus.
Yeah.
He used to, wear Buckeye gear and wears Troy Smith jersey and think about, playing for a national championship and winning a national championship. And now he's here. And, nobody, it doesn't mean anything more to anybody than Captain Jack. He loves this freaking team. He loves the Buckeyes. He loves the school. He loves his coach. He loves his teammates. And that guy embodies what it means to be a Buckeye. So, I think he'll have his guys, his buddies, ready to play, and I'm thinking a little bit closer. I'm thinking 34-24. I'm going about 10 points. I think it'll be closer than we expect, and I'm going 34-24. Want to take a second and thank quarterbacks today. We're doing the signal callers. We had former Ohio State quarterback Greg FREY on the show. We had former quarterback Steve Bellisari on the show. I thought it was really cool hearing them give us a few minutes of the details about, when they played and what it was like, being the quarterback for Ohio State. I thought that was pretty cool. And, I think that shed some light on, what Will Howard is dealing with. Obviously, it was different back then than it is now, but still, it's always been a big deal to be the quarterback for Ohio State, and those guys gave us a little glimpse of what it's all about. So, James, keep your chin up. Please pray for the Buckeyes because it means a lot to a lot of people, and especially this guy right here. I need this victory for my ticker, and then I'm going to have a whole couple of months to not freak out and maybe loosen the nerves a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So everybody enjoy the game, go Bucks, and have fun watching the final college football game of the season. And I want to thanks once again our umbrella parent company, National Streaming Sports, and also betus.com, SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek right now, enter promo code NSS, and get you $20 off. Go Bucks.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.